Welcome to the third topic of the QIS module, Financial Accountability, Use of Resources. This topic covers two standards which are largely related to internal controls. The Mango Handbook mentions 4 actions that are important in internal control. Direct, to encourage the right action. Prevent, to deter the wrong actions. Detect, identify if and where it has gone wrong. And correct, to put right the errors or losses detected. We have already covered some of the actions in the first stage, directing the correct control of resources by having clear instructions about the financial processes and responsibilities, detailed in the finance policy, standard operating procedures, and delegated authority document. We have also briefly covered some of the recommendations in the third and fourth stage, such as the importance of reconciliation to detect and correct errors or losses in our records, and we will look again at that during future standards about the annual audit. So today we'll look at one standard that covers preventing wrong action, and then another standard which covers all 4 actions in relation to supplies and procurement. The first standard in this topic is there are controls in place for safe handling of cash and banking. These include, as a minimum, cash, checkbooks and other banking details are stored securely. If possible, money is kept in a bank account that is separate from any trustee or staff member's bank account, and any transaction requires the authorization of at least 2 people. All money received is banked within the week that it is received. These are quite self-explanatory, and hopefully you can see why each one is important as a prevention or deterrent from misusing the organization's resources. Of course, these are the minimum requirements, and as an organization grows, there might be additional safety measures to consider. For example, insurance of cash and assets, a digital policy covering online banking and financial processes. Another point to mention here in the safe handling of cash would be to make sure that money coming in is kept separate from money going out. For example, money paid in is not used as petty cash, but is deposited into the bank. This is to prevent the financial records from being distorted or incomplete. For example, if money comes in and is spent straight away, and neither transaction is recorded, there would be an omission in the record keeping, which would also affect the reporting. The second standard is there are controls in place to manage relationships with suppliers and the use of supplies. With suppliers, there are several actions that can be put into place to ensure effective use of funds. The procurement process embodies the 4 internal control actions. Direct, it lays down rules about who is authorized to do what and the steps to follow when making purchases. Prevent, it includes separation of duties, principles to share the workload and to minimize the risk of theft or fraud. Detect, it builds in checking routines to ensure procedures are followed and the correct paperwork exists. And correct, it allows a review of the process and actions taken so far and the chance to put things right before proceeding to the next stage. We can do this by making sure the process, people and paperwork are in place as an internal control. The process should be clearly laid out by the organisation so that everyone knows what they have to do and who has authority or responsibility at each stage. It could be different within the same organisation based on the value of goods or services. For example, more detail and level of authority or people who need to authorise would be needed to procure a vehicle than to procure stationery. But the same processes should always be followed within each level of limits detailed. For For example, somebody procuring stationery should follow the same process as another staff member also procuring stationery. Good practice for higher value items would be to obtain quotes from 3 suppliers based on specific criteria. As we have looked at previously, the level of authority will depend on the value. For example, board members should be involved in the process for high value goods or services. The level should be set and all staff members should adhere to these limits. Separation of duties here would mean that different people would be involved during different parts of the process, decreasing the risk of collusion and fraud. Paperwork should be generated, reviewed and filed during each step of the process. For example, requisitions, quotations, purchase orders, invoices, etc. Checking and reviewing of relevant paperwork by finance staff, managers, board members and during external audit will ensure that any issues are picked up. This second standard should also apply to controls for managing resources, such as an asset register, stock book, and guidance about the use of resources and authority required for requisitioning, borrowing and using resources should be included in the relevant policies. We hope you can join us for the webinar next Tuesday. Thank you.